Hi, friend, and welcome. I'm Marilee. Thank you for joining my podcast, Express Light. I believe we each have a unique gift and ability. Being creative by nature, I have the desire to start my own business, and I know firsthand how important it is to blend creativity and business together. It has not always been easy for me, but I have successfully built my boutique serving people from all over the world. Because of my experience, I am passionate about helping others like myself who are looking to express light in their own lives through their gift, skill, or talent, and make a living doing it. If that's you, tune in each week as I provide tips, interview those who are successful in their craft, as well as share enlightening stories of how to build a business as a creative entrepreneur. Welcome to Express Light. Hey everyone, and welcome to Express Light. I'm so glad you're with me today. I am with Dr. Judith Borger. She's an aesthetic doctor. She's a mom of three, wife, board-certified physician, and successful business owner of both the Aesthetic Doctor and Concierge Medical Arts. She's also a life coach. She has a podcast, and she's a business coach. So you're going to enjoy this. Let's get started. So Dr. Jude, I'm so glad that you've joined us today. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to start first off by having you introduce yourself a little bit. I love to get the backstory of what took you into your profession and, maybe those childhood years that kind of led up into it. And then just your passion now, where you're at now. So.
Thank you, Marilee, so much for having me. I'm a huge fan of the podcast. I love just that you're saying, I love how you really get to know the guests on your show and kind of what their motivations are, what drives them, the human side of it. So, my journey into where I'm at now, really out of high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was a snowboard instructor. I traveled, I did all that thing. And then I really kind of realized that I had a passion for working with people, helping people, wanted to be in the healthcare field. So it took me a couple of years. I did the traditional route of college, med school, residency, and actually became an emergency room physician. I love being an ER doctor. I still practice pediatric ER part-time, but there was this period sort of as I grew, as I evolved, as I was like 8 to 10 years into doing this, that I just wanted more. And especially that right-sided brain side of me wanted more. And I was missing the relationships with my patients because the ER is very much you treat your patients, but there's no long-lasting kind of relationships like in family medicine and pediatrics. So I had always had an interest in aesthetic medicine and dermatology. I actually almost did it as a field. So I trained and did courses to go into aesthetic medicine as well. And I have now had my successful practice for 5 years, and it's been going really, really well. At the same time, coaching is something that I have seen great benefit for in my own life. So, like a lot of people, and, you seem to do a lot of coaching, whether you call it that or not. Once you've seen great benefit for things for yourself, you kind of also want to share it with others. So that's led me to kind of do a coaching certification and also incorporate coaching to really get all of the business knowledge that I have, as well as, the medical knowledge and the humanism, and sort of be able to provide that in a different way to my clients and patients.
So I know you've been involved in several peer-reviewed articles, and I'm just curious, are there any that you have been involved in that really stood out to you that kind of like honed you in on, this is something that's very, that affected what you do, I guess. I know when we're talking pivot, you had gone through and you've done some of the COVID research and vaccine research. I'm sure that probably played into it a little bit, or I'd just love to hear your thoughts there.
Yeah, I love that. That's actually something I get not really asked. So thank you for actually reading my bio. But I think, when we're talking about pivoting, I have pivoted several times through my life. And I think especially for physicians, that's somewhat unusual because, physicians, we work so hard for 12 plus years to get to a place, but then there's sort of this endpoint. And especially in emergency medicine, your job on day one looks very similar as your job 30 years down the road. So I think one of the things that's really lacking there is, yes, you get better and better at recognizing the patterns and treating disease and all that. But I think a lot of us do strive for growth and evolution through our lifetimes. And that's where really the pivot comes in. For me, one of the big pivots is I had obviously done research as part of my academic appointment, but then COVID hit.
Mhm.
And having an aesthetic business, that is not considered medically essential. So we actually had to shut down. And, we know, of course, that unfortunately lots of business had to shut down, and some of them shut down forever, right? Because you have your overhead, you still have your staff cost, you have your rent cost, you have your whatever costs, and then suddenly there's no income coming in if you're shutting down. So I really kind of pivoted back to something I knew really well, which was research. And also, it felt like I was really helping humanity by helping run some of these major research trials. Like you said, I was, one of the local PIs for Moderna, for Novavax, for Regeneron, which is at the time what the president got when he got COVID. So I did a lot of really big research trials during that time, which not only enabled me to really use my skill set in a way that I really felt at the time benefited humanity. Like, right, whether you're pro or anti-vax, it doesn't matter, right? It's that idea of feeling like this was needed and this was a way that I could apply my skills to help. Mm-hmm. And of course, from a financial perspective, pivoting and making it an economically very successful year meant that even though my aesthetic employees all stayed home, I still paid them. And I was like, listen, I don't know how long this is going to go on, but for the next X much, like whether you work or not, you will still get paid. And as an employer and as a female in a female-owned business, I'm really proud of that fact.
For sure. And, you speak that survival mode, everyone was kind of like shifting. And I'm sure as a doctor with your knowledge, that was definitely something to kind of, be a strange experience to go into. I mean, we all thought it was strange, but I can just imagine from your perspective, even more so. And I know, like, when it comes to pivoting, and where I was at in that phase was I had just opened a boutique, like only had it open a month. And so you're talking quick pivot to how can we sell online, and how can we get ingenuitive here, and how can we help with what's going on. So I totally understand that. And then it ended up being, you find ways to survive. Sometimes it's just, what do you love doing, or what's going to take care of the immediate need, whatever you can do, you do. And then it opens up new opportunities. It's crazy. I ended up a year later having an even better opportunity come from it as well. So, I mean, for anyone in the position that is, with your degree, and they were wanting to pivot, if they're looking at something that was interesting, but they're saying, well, I don't think I can start something new because I'm so stuck in this profession that I've been into for years. What would you tell that person? What would you say? Hey, you can maybe look here, or here's some steps to get started in doing something new, even if it's mindset thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I think I love a couple things that you want to say, that you said. And the first thing I want to highlight is that I love that you say that a bigger opportunity came, because I think that is the first thing that a lot of people, when you're open to the universe or you're open to really following your passion, sometimes I see it almost as a playing a game of hot and cold. Like, right, you don't have to know the end point yet, because a lot of times we don't know the end point. It's just, you kind of really listen to your body and you're like, is this something that feels in alignment? Is this something that feels good? Or is this something that feels like restrictive and yuck and scary and I shouldn't do that? But yeah, I mean, I think, so many times it's really society that has this like plan of how things are supposed to be, right? That this is what you do, and this is what you do next, and this is what you do next. And there's all these other factors that we can't account from, whether it's something like, a natural disaster, or suddenly you finding that your commute doesn't work with your child's special needs appointment, or that, your husband gets laid off and suddenly you're having to move to a new city, or, whatever it might be, or just that you're feeling overwhelmed, fatigued. It doesn't really actually matter. The fact that you always have the opportunity to reinvent yourself. And you always have the opportunity to sort of not get sucked. It's not a train track, right? Like, it's not a train track. Other than that, life goes on. Like, most of us, I think they're sort of on a bullet train and we can't get off. But you always have this opportunity to pause and almost think like you're taking a walk in the woods, right? And you're able to pause, and if you can really pause, you can then see like, which direction do I want to wander. I think the biggest thing that people, I think that I help them with a lot of the mindset coaching is just this idea that there are choices. There are infinite possibilities, that the way it is right now is not the only way. A lot of times we tell ourselves the story that, oh my God, if we change X, Y, and Z, like something terrible is going to happen. But I ask people to approach it from a different aspect. If you were going to be successful, no matter what would you do? Or if it was that old lady you at 80 on a rocking chair and everything had worked out, what advice would you give yourself?
And I love that when you think futuristically, it's always thinking ahead to your goals. I think that when you can keep the bigger picture in mind, it makes the small steps much easier to, one block at a time. And not just focusing so heavy on the big picture that you don't see the step in front of you. Sometimes it's just a small step to take, and setting down and writing those goals and saying, okay, I'm going to make it. Maybe quitting the job right away is not something that's doable. Well, think of the things that you could start as a side hustle that would build what you really want to do at some point. And
I love that. And if I just want to add something, just exactly what you said is, sometimes people also think they have to have the whole thing mapped out, right? Like, you're like, oh, I need to figure out how to make this one business into like the next 20 years of multi-million-dollar e-commerce. Sometimes you just have to decide on the very next step. Like, what's your next step? Just like you said, next step, because decisions move you forward.
Well, and it's about the people too. So when you think about the person in front of you, maybe that's just a neighbor, maybe that's one or two people in the town that you live in, or someone you connect with on Facebook or wherever. But finding one or two or three people that you can serve, and serve those people really well. And then once you get that model taken care of, then you can build on that and grow it much bigger, and just do that over time. So it's so true. I have a lot of women who listen to this podcast. So just as a side fun thing, I know you do a lot of life coaching, but you also, with your profession, Botox is such a big thing these days. So I'd love to hear just your tips for anyone just interested, where they should, work with you, or also just like tips and strategies in that direction. Just your thoughts on it is even helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. So I, like you said in your intro, I do kind of two things, right? I have a brick and mortar sort of office, and you had talked about your brick and mortar business that's in Fayetteville, North Carolina. It's called Concierge Medical Arts. It's a full aesthetic medicine medical office, and sort of we do a lot of the med spa type things too. So that's where we do Botox, filler, laser, anti-aging, all of that stuff. And then I have the aesthetic doctor, where I have a podcast that's all about aesthetic medicine. So first of all, if you really want to have information from an expert, that's my whole point with the podcast, is because people get all this random stuff on TikTok and Instagram, and from a weird, like, non-sciencey, like, Facebook group. So the whole idea about the podcast is really that a medical professional gives you the down and dirty and all of these things. So the first thing is putting a plug in for my podcast, The Aesthetic Doctor. But Botox and fillers and all of the aesthetic procedures, I really see them as a way to like empowering women, and it is really, and you do clothing. So I just love this sort of merge. It's like when you put on this, I hope you guys are all watching this on video, because Marilee has this like cutest little pink jacket on that
Barbie,
I'm
I'm
gonna have to
Tiffany's
see if
Barbie.
she got it from her boutique, because I'm gonna have to order it. Very Barbie. But when you put on that beautiful outfit and you just stand up taller and you feel sexier, or maybe you're going into an interview and you're feeling more powerful, or whatever that makes you feel, I think Botox and fillers kind of can do the same, because a lot of us now, I'm in my 40s, like I don't feel old. Like my mom looked old when she was in her 40s, but I don't feel old. Like, right? I have young children. I
You look
feel vibrant.
great.
I feel alive. So I don't want to have all those wrinkles on my forehead, and nor should I have to. Like, right? We got stuff for that. And where's that line between I dye my hair, I get my Botox? Like, right? I am all for it. I mean, of course, there's these underlying motivations, and we've all seen those places where it's become pathological, meaning where people, take it way, way too far the other end. But I don't really want to discuss that. I feel like for the average sort of our bell curve, for the average person, I think cosmetic procedures really serve to empower them, serve to help them love what they see in the mirror, and really serve to kind of help them see that best version of themselves. Because let's be real, like most of us don't think of ourselves as somebody with like angry frown lines, or droopy mouth, or any of those things, right? Or like super hairy this and that. Like most of us, that is not the best version of ourselves. So the reason I love doing aesthetics, and I'm sure it's the same reason that you love doing fashion, or I would love to ask you why you do fashion, even though it's your podcast, is the fact that it just really allows women to feel confident. It allows them to feel great. It allows them to love what they see in the mirror, to relate to patients different. And if you show up that way in the world, like the world shows up differently towards you.
You bring up a really good point, and it's kind of fun. I'll share an analogy, but it's a little bit of a psychological aspect is what you're talking about. And one of my favorite things about being in the boutique is when someone comes in the store, you see different personalities. And sometimes you'll see the person that's just kind of like ho-hum, they're not having the greatest day. Well, I would carry a lot of humorous items and that type thing. And it would be so fun to watch them come in and slowly kind of start giggling, and they lighten up, and then they like, the atmosphere. Then you make that connection with them, and they walk out the door with something that they absolutely love. It makes them feel better. I also do custom clothing, and it's the same thing. They can take their idea. I put it together, and when they put it on and it's a good fit, they feel so much better about themselves. I absolutely love to see people change. And it's the same thing you're doing. And what better way to help people than to help them with their confidence through the skill that you have? And I can imagine with all of the health options out there and the bright minds that have put things together, I mean, why wouldn't you take advantage of bettering yourself, being able to use the tools that are available? With wisdom, I would say, definitely through advice, with mentorship or coaching, or someone that has a lot of knowledge in the area that you're looking for, sure. So, Jude, I love being able to have you on this podcast today. If you have any last thoughts or ideas, strategies for my listeners, I'd love to hear them.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I felt like this flew by. It was so much fun. But yeah, I mean, I think it is really like to just like believe in yourself, and to love yourself, and love what's in the mirror, and also know that you can do it. And we talked about the pivot, and I firmly believe that balance is not a like fixed thing. Like, right, when we really think about balance, because we're in a moving world, in order to be balanced, little things have to shift all the time, and that's okay. That's the way of the world. So I guess if there's anybody who hears this who might just be able to take the tiniest step, because even a 1 degree shift of something, if we think of it as like a map or a path, like it will change the trajectory of everything. So thank you for all you do to empower women and business owners, and both your podcast and your clothing and all the other wonderful things you do. And thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And I will make sure I include the links below as well. But just if, someone's listening on the road or something and they want to join your podcast or find you online, where should they go? And I'm assuming you have an Instagram as well, or
I have all the things. Thank you. Thank you. So my podcast is called The Aesthetic Doctor Podcast. It's a little purple logo. I talk about all things aesthetics and living your most confident and empowered life. My website is www.theaestheticdoctor.com, and my Instagram is Dr. Borger with the doctor spelled out. And yeah, all the links are there for you. So thank you again.
You're very welcome. It's a pleasure having you on the show, and I'm sure we'll have you back. There's lots of topics I think we connect on, and we'll have to kind of cover another one the next time. Thank you so much, and we'll see you again soon.